And rolling.
Yeah, so this is Google Trends, and Google Trends is a really important resource, number one, because it's free, and number two, it gives you the search volume of any terms on the internet, anything anyone looks up on Google. So, for example, if you wanted to look up Bitcoin versus Ethereum, you could see how popular each one of those terms is at any point in time. So, with a maximum of 100, you can see that Bitcoin gets up to whatever popularity at whatever time, and with a minimum of 0, you can compare that to any other coin. So Bitcoin's top peak on trend search history will be 100. That's the most it's been searched at any point in time. Same way for Ethereum. Ethereum's max is 100. But when you compare the two together, the more popular of the two, in this case Bitcoin obviously, will show its most popular point, while Ethereum in comparison is only, let's say, a 14, as you can see on the graph there.
Yeah, Max, actually, this Bitcoin search interest actually correlates with the Bitcoin market. So if we were to download this 5-year graph of the Bitcoin search interest, and we can see that we see a nice bubble like we do in 2017, and then we can see that we're starting to do another one right now. So we're going to download this, and then again, we'll download some Bitcoin search, Bitcoin price data. And then if we graph them on the same graph with, we have Google interest on the right axis and then the Google price on the left, and we can see that the peaks happen at the exact same time. And this is because Bitcoin in 2017 was mostly fueled by hype, and the peak of interest of Google, of searching for Bitcoin on Google, would have to be the peak of price, since that's when most people are trying to buy it.
Yep, exactly.
So actually, it's very funny. So if you were to do S&P 500, so the whole stock market, we can see this graph. So it's actually quite opposite of Bitcoin. The peak of interest of the S&P 500 is actually when the stock market goes down. So if we put those on the same graph with two different axes, we can see Google trend data on the right and the price of the S&P 500 on the left. And we can see right when the pandemic starts, the S&P 500 tanks, and everyone is checking to see what the price is, because most people that own S&P 500 index, they aren't really checking it every day. S&P 500 is more of a stable investment, not like Bitcoin. So the peak of interest would happen at a downturn, not an upturn.
Yeah, so Bitcoin, for example, since it's much more volatile, people are kind of searching that every day. If you own Bitcoin, you want to see what the price of Bitcoin is, because it can go up 20% or down 20% in a single day. And a really cool thing is, if you look back at that graph, you can see that while the search volume of Bitcoin goes down, the search volume of the S&P 500 spikes way up, which would go to suggest that there's an opposite correlation between Bitcoin and the stock market. But as we've developed from 2017 and now have Bitcoin futures and Bitcoin trading in the New York Stock Exchange, it's much more evident that Bitcoin and stocks are even closer tied together. You know, who's to say when the stock market goes down that the price of Bitcoin wouldn't tank 5 times faster? Because it's a more volatile and riskier asset, traders are much more likely to sell it off.
Yeah, so Grayscale Bitcoin is actually the way that most people can buy Bitcoin on the regular market. Grayscale Bitcoin is a trust where they just hold a large amount of Bitcoin, and it's supposed to represent every 1 share of Grayscale Bitcoin should be about 0.0097 Bitcoin. So this little calculator here will give you the premium of Grayscale Bitcoin over the price of Bitcoin. So if the price of Bitcoin is $40,000, which we saw pretty recently, and the price of Grayscale Bitcoin is, let's see,
about $40.
$43. Yeah. So let's see what the premium is. You're paying about 9% extra for investing in the stock market instead of buying Bitcoin yourself on Coinbase or any other exchange.
Yeah, meanwhile, like Coinbase, for example, is based in the United States. It's a very safe exchange. You know, they're filed with the SEC. They make billions of dollars a year in revenue. And people are paying a premium to buy something that's, you know, listed with the New York Stock Exchange, you know, something that's kind of turned into like a stock, for example, you know, because people think of it as the safe way of buying Bitcoin. But what people have to realize is exchanges like Coinbase or Square with Cash App, PayPal, Robinhood, they're all extremely safe. They all have extremely high levels of security and are all FDIC insured. Don't get me wrong, the Bitcoin is not FDIC insured. But the exchanges themselves have really high levels of security and are all multi-billion-dollar companies.
So, yeah, Square stock actually explodes at the exact same time Bitcoin does.
Yep.
Yeah, it's because 50% of Square's revenue in quarter three was from just Bitcoin.
Yeah, so what a lot of people don't realize about Square is that Square is a very Bitcoin reliant company. You know, everyone has heard of Square, you know, everyone hears Square and they think, oh, it's just the payment processing thing or, you know, the Square card reader you have on your phone. But what Square's real catch is Cash App, which is Venmo's main competitor. And they actually have more active users than Venmo does. And you can buy Bitcoin on Cash App. And Square last quarter actually made $1.6 billion in revenue, more than half of their net revenue from Bitcoin transactions. Zelle's actually been doing pretty well, not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
But the nice thing about Zelle is it's instant transfers. You know, like Venmo, if you want to send shit back to your bank account, you gotta wait 1 to 3 business days. Same with Cash App. But what Square's doing, which is also really smart, is that they're applying to become basically a bank. So your Cash App will kind of turn into a bank account. There's already the Cash App debit card, which you can get crazy rewards on, 5% cash back in Bitcoin. And what they're doing is genius because they're going to get rid of the whole competition with Zelle and PayPal, because PayPal isn't a bank account. Although you can kind of use it like one. They don't give you anywhere near the interest rewards or have any of the same buying opportunities that Square does. And Square has their whole hardware network that they have connected all around the world with mom and pop shops, Starbucks, Ben and Jerry's, you name it. Square payment processors are everywhere. And eventually they'll be able to accept Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a payment.
Yeah, and actually I was blown away. I was a Venmo user most of my life, and then once I got Cash App and I could see, I can buy stocks on Cash App, I was blown away. I had no idea they had that capability.
Yeah, it's really amazing, and you know, obviously you can buy Square stock and Cash App, but it's cool because they'll put a lot of really good stocks. I mean, you can't buy any stock on Cash App, don't get me wrong, but it kind of gives people who are in a less fortunate stance, you know, the lower income section of our population, the opportunity to buy Bitcoin and to buy stocks. While you have services like Robinhood, which are great, but in order to use Robinhood, you know, you have to give them your social, you have to link your bank account, you have to do all this stuff. While Cash App, it just makes more sense because, one, no matter who you are, you'd be using it anyways. It's like Venmo. Cash App, you know, I go out to lunch with my friend. We split the bill. He pays for it on his card. I send him $5 on Cash App. Or I could send him money in Bitcoin. The way I like to think of it is like Square options are kind of like the safe way. I mean, don't get me wrong. Crypto is safe in the long run if you're willing to hold it for years and years and years because it will always go through its bubble cycle. But the thing about Square is that Square stock not only profits as a standalone company, but they make crazy money off cryptocurrency. And cryptocurrency will always be up at the end of the day in the future. And Cash App, you know, makes 50% right now. That was last quarter when Bitcoin was at 20K. Now Bitcoin's at $40,000. How much do you think they made this quarter? And their stock price has stayed more or less the same since. When their next quarterly report comes out, they're going to realize not only did they make just over 50% of their revenue off Bitcoin, it'll probably be closer to 60 or 70%. It's going to be a lot of money. Yeah, even Square themselves have consistently been investing in Bitcoin. And the reason why Square is a safe investment into Bitcoin is because when you buy Square stock, you're investing into Bitcoin. Like we were talking about before, more than 50% of their revenue was from Bitcoin transactions. Over $1.6 billion.
In just one quarter.
Yeah, so 50% of their company is made off of Bitcoin revenue. 50%.
And this was actually in quarter three of 2020. So this wasn't even during the beginning of the Bitcoin cycle. So I'm sure their Bitcoin revenue for quarter four, when the price really started to take off, is probably even crazier.
Oh, yeah, because last time this came out, the price of Bitcoin, I remember, was just about 15.5, and then this report came out, and it spiked up to like 18 soon after it hit 20. But the price of Bitcoin right now is about $40,000. And you got to keep in mind what Square does. They charge a slight premium with their fees on Bitcoin transactions, but they also buy and hold Bitcoin. So they buy Bitcoin, like they bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin months ago. And in October, they bought $50 million worth of Bitcoin. And that's just one single transaction they had. They're consistently buying Bitcoin because they have to sell it back to people on Cash App. So they're always holding Bitcoin. So how much money do you think Square's made this quarter now that the price of Bitcoin has doubled? Last time they went from 80 million in revenue to 1.6 billion dollars in crypto revenue in a quarter. From Bitcoin being about, I don't know, $6,000, $8,000, whatever it was, to $15,000.